Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all staying safe. Today I am coming at you with my April wrap-up. This is the first wrap-up video that I have done on this channel so far because I completely missed March's because I'm pretty useless. And of course this one is going to comprise of my Owls Magical Readathon results as well, so if you're interested to hear how I got on with that, then keep watching. So I read a grand total of 11 books in April. I read most of them physically and I think I read 3 on my Kindle, so that's actually kind of like good going for me because I don't know, March wasn't a great reading month for me, so yeah, I'm quite happy with how many I managed to read in April. So here is just a selection of the books that I read in April, trying desperately not to drop them. And without further ado, I'm just going to get on with telling you all about everything that I read. So the first book that I read in the month of April was Titan's Addictions. This was the second instalment in the Wall Street Titan duology by Anna Zares. I read this on my Kindle and I gave it 2 stars. I kind of just didn't really like this. I mean, honestly, I felt like the entire duology could just have been one book. It didn't really need to be split into 2 novellas. It would have worked, I think, better as one standalone. The first book was okay. I think I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was just a very stereotypical run-of-the-mill boy meets girl, boy is super successful, girl is not as successful kind of thing, and she had this whole like weird mindset regarding money, and I don't know, it was just nothing special, you know. And then I felt this second one was like a little bit problematic. He was just far too controlling in my opinion, and as somebody who has been in controlling relationships in the past, I just don't think it is a good thing to romanticize that kind of trait, because I don't know, like I just feel like it's not right. Like you shouldn't be praising and romanticizing somebody who is literally trying to control your every move. Like I don't know. To me anyway, it just seems wrong, so I gave that 2 stars. That was the first one. Not the greatest start to my reading month, but then I read my first 5-star book of the month. So I read A Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This is the beautiful collector's first edition. I really love this, although I've annoyingly got it a little bit damaged on the side there and I don't know how I managed that. Just take a minute to have a look at this cover. Like literally, it is just so beautiful. I devoured this. I loved every second of it. I think I've mentioned in a few of my recent videos how I've not really been vibing with the Shadowhunter world recently. I didn't really enjoy the Dark Artifices trilogy. I don't know what it was about it, and I was starting to wonder if maybe like I was just a bit too old for Cassandra Clare's writing now. You know, I'm 28 years old. I can't really vibe with characters who are kind of 16, 17 and younger. However, something about this one just drew me in. I don't know if it's because we're following the children of the characters in the Infernal Devices. I don't know if it's because we saw bits of Will and Tessa and Jem and Gideon and Sophie and all of the characters that we came to love in that trilogy, but I just loved it. I found it funny, like it made me actually laugh out loud. That doesn't happen very often, especially at books. And yeah, I don't know, I just think she has a great skill at writing friendship groups, and the friends in this book were just brilliantly written. The relationships were so believable, so amusing, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I actually can't wait for the next one to come out. Then I moved on to tackling my owls. So I had the Magical Librarian Career Path, which meant I think I needed to read 5 books, and then I also wanted to get my Animagus training, so that was like an additional book. So I am just going to spoil it now and say that I read all of them. So hey, go me, I passed my first readathon. Can we get a little bit excited? I'm a little bit excited. Okay, anyway, so first of all I read, I think this was one for Arithmancy, and this was Tangerine by Christine Mangan. I did actually try and do a reading vlog for the Owls, and then I just realised that it was terrible, so I never bothered putting it up. So you never got to see my rant about this book, but I really did not enjoy it. I think I gave it 3 stars in total. Let me get my Goodreads up again. No, I gave it 2 stars. This book, I mean, okay, so it's just aesthetically it's beautiful. Like I really enjoyed the Moroccan tiling. I like the orange, whatever. It just irritated me so much. So basically it's about a girl called Alice who has moved to Tangier with her husband John. I think his name's John. Yeah, John. And Alice is a bit weird. Like we don't really know what's happened, but something's obviously happened that's made her quite anxious, quite nervous. She doesn't like Tangier. She gets a bit like almost agoraphobic. She doesn't want to go out. She doesn't want to be out in public. She's just yeah, she's just struggling. There's a lot going on for Alice, and John is quite frustrated at her because obviously he is kind of wanting her to embrace their new life and to go and enjoy this new place they're in, and it gets to a point in the end where he's just like, fuck it, I can't be bothered, and he actually goes out and has an affair. Meanwhile, Alice's old roommate from university, Lucy, turns up unannounced on their doorstep one day and just kind of reintegrates herself into Alice's life. As the book progresses, we get like a dual perspective, so we have one chapter as Alice, one chapter as Lucy, etc, etc. And Alice starts to kind of have flashbacks to her university days, remembering some really weird things that Lucy used to do, and it just kind of sets her on edge. And anyway, Lucy's weird behaviour then kind of appears again in present day in Tangier, and a lot of stuff goes down. Anyway, on the back of the blurb it mentions John going missing, so I kind of thought at the beginning of the book John would go missing and the whole book would be about finding John, finding out what had happened to John, blah blah blah. John goes missing in the last 50 or 60 pages of the book, so you have this entire, like, I think it's only like 300 or 400 pages, yeah, nearly 400 pages. You have the majority of this 400-page book where not a lot is really going on, and then finally John goes missing and it's all wrapped up neatly in a little package in about 60 pages, and I don't know, I just really was not here for it. I just found it predictable, I found it boring, I didn't like any of the characters. Alice annoyed me, Lucy annoyed me, John annoyed me. Alice's auntie, who's supposed to be on her side and is supposed to be this like saviour character, also annoyed me, and to be quite honest, I just found the whole thing annoying. So yeah, didn't enjoy it, I don't recommend it, but I also know a few people who have enjoyed it. This did the rounds on Instagram quite a bit last summer and a lot of people were saying it was amazing. So maybe I'm just cynical, maybe I've just read too many thrillers to be impressed by this one. It did not thrill me, I have to say. Next up we have Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. I gave this one 3 stars, so it wasn't like the worst thing I read, but it wasn't the best thing either. This fulfilled the prompt of Defence Against the Dark Arts, which was to read a book set in or by the sea. And basically Sea Witch followed the story of Anna, Evie and Prince Nick. I can't remember the names very well. So Evie is from a family of witches, and witches in this world are kind of as witches were more in medieval times in the UK certainly. You know, they're hunted, they're outcasts, they're feared, and it's illegal to be a witch. Nobody knows that Anna and her family, that Evie and her family are all witches. Anna is the daughter of kind of like a nobleman, and then obviously we have Prince Nick. Now Evie is only allowed to hang out with Anna and Prince Nick because her family are healers, so they've helped like heal members of the royal family, and her dad is one of the king's like fishermen. I can't even really remember. Anyway, they grow up, Anna has drowned, and Evie and Prince Nick are still best friends, and then one day Prince Nick, celebrating his birthday on a boat with all of his friends, falls overboard and gets rescued by none other than a mermaid that looks suspiciously like Anna. I forgot her name. And then the whole plot unfolds. We find this mermaid called Annette, who wants to come to shore. She has her legs for the first time. She comes to shore, and in order to remain human she has to get her true love's kiss, and she chooses Prince Nick. So this whole story unfolds with Annette trying to basically to hook up with Prince Nick. Evie is wanting to hook up with the prince's cousin, I think it is. I'm doing a really bad job of explaining this, but yeah, basically it's a very loose retelling of The Little Mermaid, and I enjoyed it. It was very YA, but the plot was fun, the romances were fun. The ending obviously was very predictable, but nonetheless I still really enjoyed it. It was a fun time. I gave it 3 stars. That was a very bad summary. Wow, I hope I can kind of fix that in editing. Anyway, next, another 5-star read, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This was for the History of Magic prompt, which was to read a book with witches or wizards in it, which obviously I did. I don't need to sum this up for you guys. If you don't know Harry Potter, then I'm pretty sure you've probably been living under a rock for the past like 20 years. I love it. It's my favourite book series of all time. Obviously really enjoyed it. Took me longer to read than I expected. Normally I finish Philosopher's Stone in 24 hours. This time I think it took me 3 days, but work's been crazy hectic this past month, and I think that was why I've just not really had time to sit down and like delve into the book as much as I wanted to, but I did more so towards the second half, and yeah, it was just a fun time. I love rereading this. Okay guys, sorry for 2 things. Firstly, if the lighting and angle has changed slightly, my camera died, so I had to go back and charge it, and also for the really annoying lawnmower sounds from outside, my parents have decided that this would be just the perfect time to mow the lawnmower outside my window, so yeah. Anyway, I was talking to you guys about Damsel by Alana K. Arnold. I'm just going to start talking to you about this again because obviously I'd lost my thread, so whatever. Anyway, this book was terrible. I gave this 2 stars. I really hated it. So basically follows the story of a girl called Arma and a guy called Prince Emery. So Emery's dad, the king, has died, and in order for him to inherit the throne, he must go and rescue a damsel from a dragon, and then he has to bring her back to his kingdom and marry her, and then he gets to ascend the throne. Alma is the girl who had been kidnapped by the dragon, and she wakes up in Prince Emery's arms with absolutely no recollection of her life up until that moment. She doesn't know her name, she doesn't know where she was from, she doesn't remember being captured by the dragon or anything to do with it, and she gets taken to his kingdom, and there she has to kind of learn about her life again, about herself, and kind of navigate this new situation that she's found herself in. I mean, the premise of the book sounds great. I just absolutely hated it. Prince Emery is the biggest prick in the entire world. I knew I hated it within about 3 pages, where it was just going on and on and on and on about how great he was and how, oh my god, like, I'm gonna save the princess and da-da-da-da-da, and then when he saves this girl, like, for the first, god, how many chapters of them being together, it was, I saved you from the dragon. Don't forget I saved you from the dragon. I saved you from the dragon. Did you know I saved you from the dragon? And I was just so bored about it. I really didn't enjoy the writing style either. And honestly, her, like, metaphors for a guy's penis are ridiculous. I don't even know if metaphors are the right word. Similes, synonyms, I don't even know. Whatever. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. At one point, sex is compared to baking bread, I think. Or was it a roast dinner? I don't know. One or the other. It was completely ridiculous, and honestly at that point I just kind of like lost my any kind of desire I had to read this book. I hated it the whole way through. So many trigger warnings, by the way. So rape, sexual assault, self-harm, suicide, animal abuse, oh my god, what else? Just literally so many. I would, if I were you, research the trigger warnings for this before you pick it up, because they are in no way mentioned anywhere online in terms of like book outlets, so I was not aware of them, and I was quite shocked. But yeah, I really hated this book, so I don't recommend it. Then I read The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Gatsby is one of my all-time favourite books. I've mentioned this a few times on my channel. This was for the potions prompt, so this was shrinking solution for my animagus training, and obviously I gave this 5 stars. I love Gatsby, like, I absolutely adore it. If you're not familiar with Gatsby, it's basically set in 1920s America on the East Coast. And a fictional part of what I believe is supposed to be Long Island. It is narrated by a guy called Nick Carraway, and he has basically arrived to this area of Long Island. He's come from the Midwest. He's got a job in, I think it's in Bonds in New York, and he lives next door to this crazy big house owned by a guy called Gatsby. He does not know Gatsby at this point, but he does know his cousin Daisy Buchanan and her new husband Tom, who live across the water from him. So one day he goes around to their house, he meets a, oh my god, I can't remember the Jordan, that's it, Jordan. He meets a girl there called Jordan, who he becomes romantically involved with, and then it basically follows their kind of adventures over that summer, eventually getting invited to one of Gatsby's crazy parties that he has, and then it turns out that Gatsby actually already knows Daisy from many years before, and some crazy stuff happens, and yeah, it's beautiful. It's kind of heralded as the great American novel. I adore it. It makes me cry every single time I read it. If you're not a fan of reading the classics, there is also a really good film adaptation by my favourite director Baz Luhrmann, which is available on Netflix. It has Leonardo DiCaprio in it playing Gatsby, and Tobey Maguire, I think, playing Nick Carraway, and it is absolutely wonderful, and I also really cry at that too. So if you like Gatsby, if you like the idea of it, but you don't want to read it, then I would definitely recommend watching the Netflix adaptation or the film adaptation. Yes, so next I read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. This was for my last hour's prompt. This was for Transfiguration, which is to read a book including shapeshifting. Obviously this does include shapeshifting. I actually filmed a reading vlog of this experience, which I will be putting up on my channel fairly soon, because this is one of my favourite books, and I just thought it'd be really fun to reread it and to film me rereading it, because I hadn't done for a couple of years. I think I actually gave this 4 stars this time. It's always been a 5-star read up until recently, but I just didn't have the same reading experience. I don't know if it was because I think at the point I was reading this I was having a bit of like a low week, my mental health wasn't great, and I was kind of struggling with the whole lockdown thing, not gonna lie, and I just wasn't really in a reading mood, so I kind of pushed my way through it. when I did kind of get that reading buzz back towards the end, I did obviously really enjoy it, but just my reading experience wasn't great this time, so I gave it 4 stars. But A Court of Thorns and Roses basically follows the story of Feyre, who lives in a kind of poverty-stricken village in the human realm with her dad and her 2 sisters. And the human realm, this part of the human realm borders the fairy realm, which is home to many, many terrifying fairy beasts, and basically the mortal humans are kind of brought up fearing the fae. They're absolutely terrified of them, following kind of like a huge war that had happened many, many years beforehand, and when humans were kind of kept as slaves by the fae. And one day Feyre goes out to hunt. She's in charge of hunting for her family's food, and she slays a wolf. She skins him, she takes the skin back to her village and sells it. And a few days later, this terrifying beast arrives on her doorstep claiming that she's killed a fairy. It turns out the wolf was, of course, a fairy in wolf form, and Feyre is taken into the fairy kingdom to kind of pay back the life debt. And a lot of weird and wonderful things happen from there. It's a very good book. It's a very loose retelling, actually, of Beauty and the Beast. And I really like it. I actually found myself really liking the character of Tamlin in reading this time, which I don't normally do. I normally can't stand Tamlin. So that was interesting, how my perspective changed a little bit. The only reason I normally can't stand Tamlin is because, of course, I know what happens in the later books in the series. I think the first time I read it, I also really liked Tamlin in that first reading experience too. But yeah, it's been a few years, so I thought I'd revisit it, and I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm definitely going to continue and reread A Court of Mist and Fury, and also yeah, that is a Mist and Fury, and also reread A Court of Wings and Ruin as well, and I will probably also vlog those too, so keep an eye out for them appearing on my channel very soon. I then read another book. I read Theirs for the Night. This is the first one in the Thelanian Dynasty by Katie Robert. This was actually a I think it was free on Kindle, a little romance novella. It took me about 2 hours to read. I gave it 3 stars, I think. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it at all. It's very smutty, so if you're after some smut, I would recommend it for that alone. It was very, very smutty. I believe this is like a prequel to an actual full-length novel by the author, following the same 3 characters that will be coming up. It's either out now or it's coming out soon. And it basically follows the story of a girl called, I want to say Mia, but I don't think it was Mia, Meg. Girl called Meg, and it's her birthday. She's going out on a night out. She doesn't really want to because she's got no money and she's stressed. She's a student. She doesn't know how she's going to afford her next year at uni in New York, and her friend convinces her to go out. So they go out to a club, and she catches the eye of 2 guys who basically end up taking her home, and they have a lot of very steamy sex, but they turn out to be a little bit more than just 2 regular guys. So there's that. Then I read A Lesson in Thorns, which is the first book in the Thorn Chapel series by Sierra Simone. I gave this one 3 stars too. Now this book was, I didn't really know what to expect by this. I'd actually had it on my TBR for a little while, and then I saw a YouTuber, I can't remember who it was, do a little review of it, and she didn't actually give it a great review, but it kind of made me want to read it all the more. So I went into it. I think I spoke about this in my recent book haul video, which I'll leave linked above. But I went into this not really sure what to expect, and it follows the story of a girl called Poe, or Proserpina is her full name, and she's returning to this huge house called Thorn Chapel in the village of Thorncombe in the UK. She's from America, and she's a librarian. She's got a job doing the archives in the library in Thorn Chapel. Now Thorn Chapel is owned by the Guest family, and she has some memories of Thorn Chapel from when she was a child. She shared this kiss between herself, one of the boys from the village, and Auden Guest, who is the son of the owner of Thorn Chapel, when she was 12. And then this kiss, they were like fake married and part of the game. This kiss has like stayed with her for all of her life. Anyway, she returns to take this job following the death of Ralph Guest. So Auden is now the owner of Thorn Chapel, and all of their friends from that same summer have kind of converged back on the house. The same group is back again, and things just kind of take a little bit of a turn. They are slowly discovering, I think they're all aware of their sexuality at this point. They're all bisexual, but they're slowly discovering kind of a almost polyamorous relationship between all of them. Now I don't want to say, I don't know if that is the correct terms. Please do not hate me if I have like oh god, I can't even think of the right word. If I've got that wrong, if it's not polyamory, I'm not, or polygamy, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to say it and like accidentally cause offense to anybody, but basically they all end up in a kind of sexual relationship together. and they're trying to recreate these rituals that they have learned about that have taken place in the chapel at Thorn Chapel for many years. And yeah, that's where we're at basically. There's just a whole lot of sex happening, which I've enjoyed reading it. I'm not gonna lie, I've been in kind of like a romancy, smutty romance mood recently, so I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. It had like a fantasy element to it, which I found quite good as well. I didn't hate it, but you know, it wasn't like mind-blowingly great writing. It wasn't like the best thing I've ever read in my life, but it also wasn't terrible, so yeah. And then finally, I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I gave this 3 stars as well, so it's been a very 3-star kind of month, April. But this follows the story of a girl called Pip, who is researching a murder that went on in her little village or town as part of her kind of, I think one of her A-level coursework pieces before she goes off to university. And she is convinced that the person who was blamed for the murder of this schoolgirl actually didn't do it. So she kind of decides to delve in and investigate and try and get his name cleared, and she kind of meets a lot of resistance along the way. People want to just think the case is closed and all wrapped up neatly, but she's convinced it's not. There's quite a bit of danger and excitement and intrigue. It's a bit of like a thriller. It is YA, it's not kind of like an adult thriller, so it's very tame. But I will give you a warning, there is a trigger warning for the death of a pet in this, which I actually found did really affect me. But aside from that, yeah, it's very tame. It's good fun. I think the second one has just been released. I probably will pick it up because I didn't hate this. I wasn't like awed by it. It was very young in comparison to obviously the thrillers and the crime novels that I'm used to reading. But yeah, I didn't hate it. It was enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars. Yeah. So guys, that is everything I read in the month of April. I really hope you guys have enjoyed my first wrap up. Hopefully I will get better at doing these and a little bit more timely at doing these as well. But yeah, if you have enjoyed it, please do give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you think of them. And don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye guys.